Well, hey there. You've stumbled upon the intersection of internet quandaries and psychological insight. Welcome to Veritas Views on AITA, where the quirks of the internet meet the expertise of Veritas Psychology Partners.
Hey, we're going to do this again this week, aren't we, Gayle?
We are. I am so excited.
Another podcast, another Am I the Asshole question that Michael's going to bring us.
Yes.
And we get to poke at it. Isn't that great?
It's fantastic. But before we do, we should introduce ourselves.
Yes, we should. I'm Dr. Dan Kessler. I'm a clinical psychologist. Do a lot of work with relationships, some work with sleep. And the cool thing about working with relationships is it brings up so many different aspects of psychology. And we're going to talk about them today through this whole Am I the Asshole thing. Happy to be, and I'll quick introduction here. My business partner, Dr. Gayle MacBride at Veritas Psychology Associates. We've been working together for 10 years now. Tell me about yourself.
I'm a psychologist with Veritas Psychology Partners.
Partners. Oh, tell the listeners about yourself. How about that?
Oh, you said Veritas Psychology Associates. I got a little worried about your dimension.
Did I say Veritas Psychology Associates? I got our business name wrong.
You did.
Yeah, that's terrific. Michael, can you fix that in post?
Yes, I'm Dr. Gayle MacBride. I am also a clinical psychologist. I've had the privilege of working with Dr. Kessler, Dan Kessler, for almost a dozen years now, and
been a while.
Relatively newly in a private practice setting, which I've been thrilled to do. We've had a great adventure, and quite frankly, I'm the glue that holds us together, because we have not given our intrepid host a moment to introduce himself, or even a word edgewise today.
No.
I am pleased to also introduce the other Dr. MacBride on the line. Little known fact to our regular listeners, Dr. Michael MacBride as our host today.
I'm just a doctor of books and words, though. So if you need a prescription for one of those, I will happily
got you covered.
Write one. So
and you actually give really good book prescriptions.
Yeah.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
So, Michael, will you take us away and do your hosting duties already?
Sure. Absolutely. For anyone who is not sure what they've stumbled into, this is our podcast where we take a Am I the Asshole situation. Somebody on the internet has posted the scenario for readers to weigh in. And I've gone out and I found that. I have not told Dan nor Gayle about it. And I'm going to put it in front of them and see what they do with that. I always like their perspective. And, I've de-identified the post, so it's a little more discreet and that kind of stuff as well. And if you're new, also stick around through the credits. We're going to try something different in our bonus conversation today. So we'll see how that goes.
And if you are a loyal listener and you go, what the hell is happening here? I just need to let you know we've gotten a little maybe loose at the end of our season. This is the last episode of our season, but continue to listen, and we're gonna bring you some treats while we're on break.
And as just to correct briefly, Dr. MacBride, we've not gotten loose. I have.
Oh.
I've gone a bit rogue here.
A bit astray.
I've gone a bit rogue and a bit astray, and so it's entirely my fault or responsibility, depending on how you look at it. So, Michael, you got a scenario for us?
I do. Yeah. So today's is: Am I the asshole for following my late sister's wishes and kicking our brother out of her funeral?
No.
Oh, I think we need to hear more, Dan.
I'm already convinced.
Because it was her wishes, you automatically, this is the right thing to do.
No, you're right. No. I should listen.
We should probably hear some more.
All right, we'll hear some more.
Again, aforementioned Dr. Kessler going rogue. Let's listen to this. Let's listen to
Michael,
that.
Michael, would you present us with the facts as stated by OP, the original poster?
Yes, this is what I got for you. My sister passed away after a long illness, and she left very clear instructions about her funeral. Our brother John was not to attend or receive any of her ashes. She left me as the executor of her estate. My sister wasn't great to John growing up, and he wasn't much better. They fought constantly. As an adult, she went to therapy, recognized the harm she had done, and tried to make things right. She apologized multiple times, reaching out to him, but John shut her down each time, making it clear he didn't want a relationship with her. When she got sick, my sister made one last attempt to reconnect, asking John to visit her. He declined again, telling her he wasn't interested, even as she was on her deathbed. She was hurt. She made it crystal clear that she didn't want to see him. If he didn't want to see him in her life, then she didn't want him around in death. To her, it was simple. If he couldn't show up while alive, he had no place at her funeral. When she passed, I sent John a notice that she had passed, but informed him of her wishes, since he wasn't at the reading of her will. Despite this, John showed up uninvited. I think our uncle gave him the date and time. In line with my sister's wishes, I asked him to leave. He got angry, caused a scene, and accused me of being cruel and denying him a chance to reconcile and say goodbye. Some family members criticized me afterwards, saying I should have let him get closure and that funerals are for the living. I pointed out it was her final wish, and I'm still refusing to give him anything of hers. Am I the asshole here?
I'm jumping in first off with how sad it is when when someone in a family is unwilling to reconcile. There are certain situations that are irreconcilable, absolutely, and I'm not talking about a situation where trauma has been because no one should be forced to reconcile. This sounds like one of those situations where they were unpleasant to each other, but not abusive, maybe, and given a chance to reconcile. That's unfortunate that it happened the way it did.
I completely agree. And I'm really struggling to understand John's perspective here in wanting to do this visit after the death, but refusing.
Right.
When the end of this woman's life was very clearly in front of them. I sort of understand, like, oh shit, I missed this one opportunity and I didn't know because it was a sudden heart attack or something. And you lose that person unexpectedly before you have the chance to reconcile. But he knew this was going to happen. And so I find myself very curious about John's intention and motive to show up at the funeral. Like, I don't get it.
If he wants, what he's saying is he wants some closure. He wants the opportunity to reconcile in his head and come to grips and all this. And if he was never given that opportunity, maybe I can see this. Let's say she suddenly she got hit by a bus. Yeah. And it gets rushed to the hospital, and on her deathbed says, "I never want to see John at the funeral." But here she's asked for the reconciliation,
and right, and that offer was put before him during her, lack of a better word, hospice, the period of illness.
Yeah, he had the opportunity.
He did multiple opportunities, it sounds like, and has declined. And this is where I don't understand. And I think where we sometimes get it wrong is we think that our ability to gain closure rests with an event or an opportunity afforded to us by someone else.
Yeah.
I think closure is really a deeply personal opportunity that we take, and it can't be dependent on the actions or an event controlled by another, because you put all of the control on them, and then your ability to get closure is completely out of your control, and that just pisses people off more. So John here would have been advised, had he been in my office looking for advice, to find ways to gain closure around this relationship that was separate from the funeral.
Right. I'm really puzzled by, anyone who refuses the overtures of connection throughout her life to suddenly want to do it at her death. That seems a little bit like
connect with a dead person.
Right. That doesn't. I don't understand that. I mean, if through her life, I'm imagining the situation where he's like, you know what, she was awful to me. Mm-hmm. And no amount of apology, because here's the thing: if she asks for reconciliation and he refuses it, that's his right. It makes me sad if a family can be reconciled, if someone can recognize, it sounds like she really realized that, I was terrible to him, right? And I was a terrible sister, and I'd like to make amends for that. He doesn't have to accept that. He's under no obligation whatsoever to accept that. It's sad to me when people aren't able to get that, but sometimes things are bad enough that you're not. And
Absolutely.
if things are so bad that he can't, I respect that. That's a boundary.
Yeah.
I don't get showing up at the funeral then.
No, I
It's
mean, I
that
certainly
bad.
worry that he wants an opportunity to kind of get up in a public way and just shit all over her memory, which is
I
really, quite frankly, going to ruin it for other people there.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's what he's going to do, but I really cannot fathom a purpose that is benevolent and healing.
Right.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we have comments and updates and whatever, but like I really struggle to understand
Yeah.
John's perspective and need and want here because
Right.
he did turn down those opportunities.
Right.
Now, oh, sorry, go on.
No. I could see a situation where he like sometimes the actual reality of a thing is different
Yeah,
than you think it's going to be.
sure.
But at that point, I think
I think it's yours to
he's
accept.
unfortunately in a situation where he's got to say, "Shit,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that I really did want to get something here, and I should have,
Hmm.
but it's too late now."
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't think he
And
gets to
now
do that.
we also the minor characters, right? The family who is so upset with the living sister following through on the deceased's last wishes. I think there's this
Oh, hey, you did it again. Do we know OP's gender here?
Yes, I'm sorry. It
yeah,
is sister.
sister.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. No, there's
I
two
thought
sisters and a brother.
I apologize.
That's okay. No, you
I
got to
thought
get
that
it
we
right.
didn't. I thought we didn't get OP's gender here. I
No,
deeply apologize for the criticism.
I, I I really appreciate staying on point. We often ask, like, we want to get this right because we don't want to incorrectly assume things. So,
Right,
it's
right,
better to
right.
question it
Fair,
and get it right
fair.
and then be wrong. But no, in this case, I was pretty certain what I heard was it was a sister who was the executor of the will of a
Right.
deceased sister, and then this brother. And so we've got this living sister who has been asked to do something really difficult, which is keep a sibling away from a family event. And the family members are reacting very strongly against this because I think we do have a tendency to not want to sit and watch somebody else's pain. And we tend to move toward mitigating that pain
Mhm.
versus doing the harder thing. And so this family jumps on the executor sister and wants to just make everything fine and let John in. And I don't think that is being respectful of the decedent's wishes. I really do struggle that this family railed up against her.
Yeah, I am distressed at the family's choice here. I can't imagine that this whole story is new to the family. They have to know about it.
I can't be.
Everyone knows about the
Yeah.
situation, and
I think they may have been surprised at the vehemence with which the decedent felt about this relationship that she just said, I'm done. And that might have surprised them. And so they were unprepared to deal with, oh my gosh, he's here. And now what?
Let me add one thing really quick. The
please.
OP added some clarification because a number of people online asked, like, what was their beef, essentially, like what was the bad blood between them? Because they did wonder about the possibility of abuse of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
And so the OP said it was mostly because they were constantly pit against each other, which wasn't always their fault. They did the same sport and essentially had similar strengths. She also won more often, so that didn't help that dynamic, which made him feel invisible. It was the more you do, the more the parent loved you kind of deal. The winner got rewards and attention. And in short, he blames her for his crappy childhood. Our mother wasn't great. She's already passed away, but she often manipulated the situation one against the other.
So what a horrible situation. So
Yeah,
thank you
painful.
for that
Mhm.
because I think that sometimes we get tagged up or get caught up in like if there was abuse here, if she had been abusive to him and he was choosing not to connect with, not to reconnect. I mean, even if he's choosing to not reconnect for other reasons, that's his decision. But I certainly would be even more sympathetic.
Yeah.
It sounds like the parents were really emotionally harmful to these two people as
Mhm.
youngsters.
Mhm.
That anger got carried into adulthood.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. The son seems like he was really kind of in a setup. And it's hard sometimes to push against our parents, even if we know that the process is toxic, because we so often need that relationship. And so that's where the pitting can really happen, where you then have to choose between a sibling relationship or a parent relationship. What a shitty choice. And so you choose parents because when you're young, especially if you're the youngest child, you really need those parents, just for developmental and, support, just kind of basic things throughout life. And then, we get down a road of conflict and we forget where it started and how it got going and really how to move past it. It's become habit and knee jerk, and nobody knows why anymore. And this is such a lost opportunity for this family. And I know we say that a lot. And it really sounds like John maybe even just really recognized at that the reality of his sister being gone, what a lost opportunity it was. But unfortunately, sometimes those opportunities are just gone, and we need to be respectful at that point.
Yeah,
that's unfortunate.
It is unfortunate. It sounds like the sister here, the deceased sister, really played into this as a child and recognized later in life how she had been manipulated and how she had done harm as a child, and really wanted to make amends. I compliment her in posthumously in her recognition that she'd done harm. I mean, it's sometimes like when people are in therapy and we're talking about the harm done to them. That's hard. Sometimes it's even harder when people are coming to therapy and they're talking about the harm that they've done.
Yeah.
Like that's incredibly powerful work to do work on. This is what I've done that harmed others. And, sometimes they're able to make amends directly. Sometimes they're able to indirectly make changes and make amends in some way that's not directly to the person. It sounds like the sister really wanted to make positive amends as best she could. I mean, you can't unring a bell, but you can acknowledge the damage.
Well, let me ask one of the questions that's really at the crux of a lot of the discussion online, which is what matters most? The sister's dying wish or the living people who are left with the sorrow and sadness and needing to overcome that or heal in some way? Like that ends up being kind of at the crux of this question is how do you choose which side values?
Yeah, it's a question of funerals are for the living. And if they're truly for the living, then why can't John come? It's not like the sister's going to know. And yet we very much go out of our way to honor individuals' last wishes because they have entrusted us to put a capstone on their life in some way, in a very specific way. In those, they die hoping, knowing that person will do that for them. I think that's a really hard ask, which is more important.
Yeah, we have this tradition around trying to follow through with the final wishes of someone who's died, and I think it's a reasonable tradition. I don't want to abandon that tradition.
No.
Especially not like one day I might want to say, hey, could you please do this? And I don't want to think, well, shit, they're not going to follow through with what I want them to do. So,
right.
And I kind of want to, I don't want to abandon this tradition. And I totally agree that funerals are for the living. It's absolutely true. 100% true. So I don't think this is an either or. No. I think that funerals are for the living, and where you can, you want to honor the final wishes of the deceased.
Yeah.
And sadly, in this case, that those two things were in conflict.
Yeah, I found myself thinking about, is there a world in which you say, John, I really appreciate how you have really taken this in and how maybe even your perspective has shifted because of this loss, it's really important to our sister that you not be at the actual event. What we can do is set aside some time for closure, right? After the actual event, where if you wish to come in and pay last respects, you may do that. She's asked that you're not at the funeral, but we can't stop anyone from paying last respects in the sense of like you could show up at a burial site or even just have a thoughtful moment and reflection or prayer for her. Like we don't have control over that. So if we just offer a path toward that, if that's truly what he wanted, then maybe that, but not at the funeral.
Exactly. He could have gone to the funeral home.
Yes.
And visited. He could have, as you said, visited her grave site afterwards and had a conversation.
I don't say that's hard because he's alone in that grief then.
Well, but
maybe that's the choice he makes.
I don't have a problem with him being alone in the grief. I feel like I hate to sound cold about it. It sounds like he chose his loneliness.
Yeah.
And I'm sad for that. Really sad for that. Because the problem is this is one of those where there isn't a right answer.
Right.
Like there's no situation where we get to undo the damage done by the parents or by the kids to each other as children. There's no situation we get to honor both the last wishes of the deceased and the desire for closure from the brother. Like this is a real downer of an episode. But I have to say, like there is no, I don't see it. I don't see a good solution here. I see a lot of different levels of shitty solutions here.
Yeah, I do think the best solution is this one where he has some private time. And if that's not satisfactory, again, if you were my client, we would be exploring why that wasn't and really what his motives and hopes were. But yeah, no, I agree that ideally that family would have supported the executor to enforce this idea that he not be present, that she offered olive branches at different times or even an opportunity to build a relationship and discuss. And he declined. And if she doesn't want him there, I think that's totally fine.
I also feel for her being being stuck in the middle here. So as we've been talking lately about minor characters and getting back to the family, like putting the executor sister in the middle here, kind of a shit thing to do.
Sure.
Just name the executor because the deceased entrusted her with making decisions on her behalf and on the behalf of the funeral. She's the one who gets to make those decisions. Whether you like it or not, executor is not a committee. It's a role someone gets, and they get certain decisions made within the rule of law. And she made the decision as she was entrusted to do. Yeah. You may not like it, but like, not your place.
Right. And none of the family gets to second guess that. This isn't, like you said, it isn't a committee. She's made a decision. Now our job is to support her in that decision.
And similarly, if she'd made the decision to allow John there, and there were family members who thought like, no, you should not do that. You should not be allowed. Again, she's the executor, and she is the one who is empowered to make that decision. And I'm going to stick with her decision on this one.
As a little bit of an aside, I feel really compelled to just say it is one of the kindest things that you can do to map out these decisions and communicate these with a loved one so that they know how to make these decisions. What a shitty thing to have been left with a big question mark. And the sister's like, oh, I don't know. I had such a rough flight. What do I do? Like it was a bit, although hard, it was a kindness that her sister did to say, I'm very clear. I don't want John here. If it had been left as a question mark, I think that would have been even shittier for the sister. So having these conversations are really important and making sure that you have them with the person who's most likely going to fulfill this role.
Yeah. And quick public service announcement here. If you have a will to write, detail the shit out of that thing. Yeah. Like you can always they can always say, you know what, I don't want this painting, I want that one. Are you willing to trade with me if you've got multiple kids? Right. But don't let them be like splitting shit up on their own. They will always get it wrong. They will always. The number of times I've seen people get mad at each other because this person got that, and I'm entitled to this, and you're entitled to that, and I did this more, and start arguing like literally. Like I talked to this one older person. I honestly don't remember if it was in my office or in personal life. So no PHI here. Who would like put stickers on the back of everything.
Oh, I had an aunt that did that. We came along with Post-it notes and like, I want that lamp. Boom. And they just
everything. Yeah. So there was no argument. And afterwards, if the kids say, you know what, I don't like this. Would you be willing to trade with me? They can do that.
Right.
But like everything has a Post-it note and there's no argument about who is entitled to what. I just like, boom, love that.
No, I think that's great. And I think that we really underestimate how complicated death is. You know, you come into this world and I tell you, comparatively, I think it's relatively easy. Leaving this world and tidying up your life, I mean, relative to death, because there's healthcare directives and powers of attorney and will and your shit and your assets and your liabilities and all of this stuff. And it's not even like, I was talking to a family member because we've had a number of aging senior family members and just talking about how complex it was. Even when you think you have all of the right documents in place, there's something that can happen that people are like, we don't know because we don't have it written down. And these loopholes are only found when we're faced with them, and it's hard to make decisions for someone else.
You see so many, and people, the other piece here is that emotions are running high.
Of course,
so you get this emotions running high, and then there's often this, well, have the doctors tried this? Well, have they tried that? Well, hey, you didn't do, and I see this family, I've seen families in conflict over dying relatives, like this person wants can we try this one more thing? And why are you giving up? And and then, well, why are you and people get into all sorts of conflicts around stuff around death and dying, even before we get around to trying to figure out the friggin' like wills and stuff. But I love your like Post-it note, Aunt. Like, great.
Oh, it was great.
What a terrific idea. Never like leave that stuff vague and uncertain, because there are going to be conflicts.
Because then you have 3 people who want the same ice chest, and it's going to be a competition to who gets it out the back door first.
It is. And these things happen, and they're awful. And I've seen situations where family members stop talking to each other because they were fighting over who got, whatever. And it's like, oh God.
I know.
So, but here's a situation where, if Aunt Gertrude writes on the back of every painting who gets what, we're honoring her wishes.
Right.
And she's not using those paintings anymore. Those paintings are for the living. So we could argue for those who are arguing funerals are for the living. So are those,
So,
why do we have to honor her wishes? Well, we honor her wishes because it's a choice we do.
Yes. So we're back to the topic at hand, which is
right now.
I saw you do that.
I did that. That's some professional level podcasting shit right there.
Right there. Honoring the level of the wishes, or honoring the decedent's wishes to decide who may not be in attendance to your funeral. And I think that she is within her rights. I think the executor of the estate did the best she could. It's a shitty situation. It's shitty that she's in, especially on this day. She lost someone really special.
OP's not an asshole.
Not an asshole.
I think John's an asshole for showing up when he's not wanted. I get that he's grieving. I get that he's in pain. When you're specifically asked to not show up to someplace, whether right or wrong, you're asked not to show up someplace. I think
you moved me a little. I was going to say John sucks here, but I think I moved to asshole. Yeah, John's an asshole, and the family are being assholes.
The family are being assholes for fighting, for getting all up in arms about this. John's being an asshole for like, if it wasn't communicated with him, I could totally see a situation like it was never communicated to him. He wanted to get this last closure. He showed up at the funeral. He was told not to, and gets really upset. I'll actually give him that.
Oh, for sure.
He's not an asshole. He may have been short-sighted. He may have been mildly dickish, but he's not an asshole. He was specifically told, our sister didn't want you there. Right or wrong, she's asked me not to let you there. I'm going to let you know I do not want you there. He was told that. It's painful. Agreed. It's awful. I feel for him. I really do.
And speaking minor characters, whoever that uncle was that gave the funeral information away, like, come on.
That was kind of a dick move too.
That was such a dick move.
Yeah, he's a dick.
That's more than mildly dickish. That was solid.
Thank you for bringing him. Very minor character, but let's not leave anyone out. Let's not leave anyone out. Yeah.
All right, Michael, what did the internet have to say? Were there comments that would move us on any of this, or are we in agreement here?
No, I think you guys really hit on the most of the things. I mean, they really got caught on the whole "who's the funeral for" kind of thing. And I'll
Mm.
say probably 2/3 were strongly, "You're not the asshole. You did exactly what was asked of you. You did a great job. It's a hard place to be in. It sucks, but it's important that when you leave this world that your wishes, your final wishes are followed.
Mhm.
And whether that's an estate and how it gets divvied up, or what occurs at your wedding, or what occurs at your funeral, or who is invited or not. If you have specifically said, you're counting on somebody to do that in your stead, just like any other kind of thing. If you were, on life support and you had wishes regarding how that is handled, you would want to be treated the same way. And so they made that argument. One of my very favorite examples in there is Ernest Hemingway and his polydactyl cats. So when he died,
Wait, hold on. You're gonna somehow bring this together, and I'm just super impressed that I know you're gonna bring this Ernest Hemingway and his polydactyl cats back to this, and I just want to ahead of time compliment you on your ability to bring these things together. So go ahead, Michael.
So Ernest
Bring it on.
Hemingway lived in Key West. He had a number of houses, but one of his favorites was in Key West. And when he was down there, he had polydactyl cats. They just have extra toes. So they have 6, 7 toes, whatever. They look like they're wearing mittens all the time because their paws are so big. And he loved them. And so when he died, he left that house to his cats and he left a trust to provide for them in perpetuity. So much so that those cats now, I believe there's like 60 or 80 of them. And Key West kind of hates them, but it is his final wishes. Like, no, these cats were important to me. I want them taken care of. And so there you go. You can go check out the polydactyl cats. PETA had to go and investigate because they were concerned about the welfare of the cats. And what they found were a bunch of chill cats, very happy and loving life. So
Amazing. Thank you, Peter, for checking on them. And I am
That is
glad that they
wonderful.
are living.
I'm
living the best
so
life.
I must assume then that like part of this trust is like they have like
caretaker of
people
some sort.
go in and like change litter boxes and shit like that and feed them and make sure they're
yeah.
like well cared for. That's amazing. There will come a time when there will be far too many cats for the space, but okay, like does he is spaying and neutering okay? I no, what are the rules? Well, let's not go too far down this rabbit hole, but I will look this up later.
Indeed. Yeah.
Are there any other insights that the internet had here? There are some people who obviously thought she was the asshole.
Yeah, a lot of them questioned what the original poster's relationship was like with John, and if she was more on the sister's side than John's, and so this was like one final thing. And then the ones that were kind of the outliers were saying everybody sucks here. Like your sister tried, but ultimately kind of got one final dig in, whether it was intentional or not, to cut John out of an opportunity. And John was definitely an asshole for showing up. And you're the least asshole person here, but the way you've written this, it's very lopsided and one-sided in perspective. And so they think that like it'd be interesting to hear John's perspective. And then the rest of the family and the uncle, they can all suck it. So it's essentially
It's interesting. We've been going out of our way to try to make sure to get to all the minor characters here, but we never rendered judgment on the decedent. That's an interesting point that was raised here.
Well, I think we painted her in a little bit more of a glowing light because of her olive branch opportunities.
Yes,
and so there's a lens here where she takes a final dig and goes, fuck you and watch this, I'm out.
But in the end,
I think it's the last word.
Yeah, you know what, Michael? The internet has moved me a little bit in the end. If she really wanted to extend that olive branch over and over and over again, and she really recognized the harm done, in the end, would it have been a kinder thing to have not made that rule in the first place? I don't know, by the way. I'm not judging her for this. I'm not willing to call her an asshole or even disparage her in any way, but it's an interesting question that I think I'm going to end up like marinating on for a little while here, whether she should have just shut up and not said anything and allowed him to choose as he saw fit.
Yeah. Well,
I imagine this was definitely a decision made out of hurt. I tried. Fine. I'm done. I'm really done. But
Sure. But I moved a little bit on that to maybe not like give her sainthood
yes.
on this.
Yeah.
But and I think that may have been a flaw, but I'm not willing to call her an asshole or anything close to it.
Yeah.
For that.
No, I agree. Anyway.
yeah, thank you both for another riveting debate and a glimpse into the internet forums and life or death decisions, I guess.
Right.
Remember, morality is often shades of gray and not just black or white.
And keep in mind that life is a terminal condition that is sexually transmitted. Take it, Kessler.
We have Michael. We have a bonus conversation, but you're supposed to stay stuff first, right?
Yeah, sure. So, please follow and share Veritas Views with your family and friends. And as always, stick around through the credits for whatever the bonus conversation is. See you on the flip side of the credits.
You can follow Dr. Dan Kessler at Dr. Dan Kessler and Dr. Gayle MacBride at Dr. G. MacBride. Oh, and you can find them both at veritaspp.com. Credits. Tickling the Ivories, Matthew Reddington. Art, production, and design, bringing this show together with flair and finesse, Michelle Love. Recording and editing, turning chaos into something worth sharing, Michael MacBride. Intro, outro, I'm Kelly Buttrick, a VO talent who just happens to be Dr. MacBride's cousin. Cats, CJ, Linus, Sadie, and Griffin. Hosting by whomever lost the coin flip. Interruptions by all their children. The content of this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Listening to this podcast does not constitute a therapist-client relationship. If you believe you may be experiencing a mental health issue, please seek the assistance of a qualified mental health professional. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, you can call or text 988 from anywhere in the U.S. to be connected to Crisis Mental Health Services.
And now, here's that bonus conversation.
Okay, Dan, we've talked a little bit about wrapping up. This is it. This is the end. You have made it to the end of season 1.
Oh, wow.
I know. This is really
Thanks for sticking with us, listeners.
And I want to try something out, and I'm really curious if listeners hear it and they like it and they want more. Great. Dan, if you have no idea what's coming, so if you like it and it works well, we're going to keep it. If it's a total flop, forgive me and we'll ditch it.
Yeah.
But here we go. I have 5 rapid fire questions that are this or that questions. So you have to pick one. And if you're compelled to give an explanation, keep it tight because I got 5. I know. Keep it tight. Ready? Are you ready for your this or that?
Yeah.
Okay. Sweet or savory?
Savory.
Lake or ocean?
Yes.
No, you got to pick. It's this or that.
Yes is the answer.
Nope. Choose one.
Well, I want to say ocean, but I live in Minnesota, so I have to say lake, right?
No, you don't. You don't have to say
ocean. Go. Ocean.
Okay.
Go.
Jeez. Whew. All right. Plane or car?
Plane.
Okay. Rom-com or docudrama?
No.
No. Again, it's this or that. You have to pick one.
A begrudging rom-com.
A begrudging rom-com.
Yeah.
Say more.
No, I'm not saying anymore. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Keep going.
All right, last one. Rain or snow?
No.
Right.
Cold rain, as we are having right now here in Minnesota. Cold rain is the worst weather there is.
It's true.
And warm rain is fine, but the cold, no.
Yeah, it like chills you to the bone, right?
Snow.
Yeah.
Snow.
All right.
All right.
Well, that's our this or that. Thank you for our bonus conversation.
Thanks so much for listening to this, our last episode of season 1. We're taking a break. We're out for 2 weeks. We'll be playing some of Michael will be playing some of our deep tracks from the previous season before we start our new season. And we're hoping to hear from you. Gayle, we have some things planned for the next season.
We do. I'm really excited. Before I tell you about that, I just want to say, Dan, hearty congratulations on, I don't even know, 40 plus episodes in season 1. This is a robust season. Very excited to have done this with you. And I thank you for all the time that you spent with me just talking about, clinical content here, or potential content that comes up in our clinical conversations. That's probably a better way.
There you go.
In season 2, we're hoping to find some willing participants to add to this clinical conversation, different voices, different specialties. Well, and we're trying to curate some folks who will bring in a sense of humor and maybe aren't a little afraid of some curse language. So we want to keep it light. We want to keep it entertaining. But we're working on hand selecting some guests for you. If there are topics and things that you're looking forward to, or something that you think we've gotten incorrect, point us to the episode. We'd love to kind of go back and rehash and get it right. So
yeah,
that's
love
our new season.
Love our mailbag questions. Love our mailbag criticisms.
It's all great.
And we'll see you in the new year.
Yeah, see you in the new year.
We love hearing from you, so please review us on Apple, Spotify, or, well, wherever you're listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please review, like, and follow. Also, give it a share. This helps us reach more listeners.